scaredest you've ever been in your entire life?
In my entire life.
When did this happen?
10 years ago-ish, we were in transition from living in Nebraska, and I think we were about to move to Chicago. I don't know, it blends together a little bit. But we were staying at a friend's house, and he's a great dude, opened his home to us, but he had a big empty house, and he was gone, and Camilla was gone, maybe getting our new apartment ready or something, and so it's just me in this giant house. And we always slept in the same guest bedroom in the back of this big house. And I went to bed one night, everything's normal, crash out, everything's normal. I think I was having a pretty comfortable night of sleep. And then I heard a rustling somewhere in the house. Had to be 1 or 2 in the morning, maybe 3 in the morning. I mean, definitely in that hour where there should be nobody there.
And you're alone.
And I'm alone and definitely awake. Definitely awake. I am conscious of my surroundings. I'm conscious of my body. And I'm laying on my stomach with my head turned to the side so I can kind of see out of my peripherals the door to the bedroom that leads down a long hallway to the main part of the house.
And this is not your house.
No, which makes it a little weirder because, you're used to the creaks and noises of your own home. So I'm laying there and I think, yeah, that was my brain playing tricks on me. I'm awake now. I'll just listen. And I hear it again. Plain as day. It sounds like bags, like plastic bags rustling. I'm like, crap, there is somebody in this house. It can't be my friend. I just talked to him on the phone and he's out of state. There's no way he's home. There's nobody else who should be here. And there's no reason they would be here at this time of day, even if they were checking, like even a house sitter who was mistaken. They wouldn't be here now. Somebody's breaking into this house.
Did you, you didn't think about weapons? Like go for a baseball bat or something?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. I mean, you know how this works. You're a dude.
Yeah.
I've gamed this out 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
It's action time, bro. Yeah.
I've planned for this.
Actually, I did have that run through my brain. And that's the first moment that I noticed I couldn't move. I could hear the noise. I knew I needed to reposition my body at least to a spot where I could do something quickly if I had to, but I couldn't move. I couldn't even flinch.
What do you mean? So you were clearly asleep then?
But I wasn't asleep. I was absolutely awake. In fact, the only thing that I could do, because my hand was resting by my face, even though it's very cliche, the first thing that comes to mind if you're trying to make sure you're actually awake, of course, is pinch yourself. Yeah. So I pinched myself.
No, you didn't.
Ow. I literally pinched my face. I remember doing it. I'm like, I am definitely awake. And so then now my heart starts racing because I'm freaked out. Something's wrong. And I hear the noise again, but this time it's not all the way on the other end of the house. It's at the end of the hallway. And about a second later, I hear it again, and it's further down the hallway. And about a second later, I hear it again, and it is just outside my door.
It's game time.
And now I'm like rocking my shoulders and trying to get a better view of who this person is. Obviously, it's a person. And there's just enough light from the distant street lights outside the Venetian blind covered windows that I can see. And I managed to rotate my head just enough to see what I would estimate to be an 8 to 9 foot tall, skinny, black, featureless figure duck underneath the door because it couldn't fit inside the door.
What?
It was too tall.
Hold on.
Put its hands against the side of the wall.
What?
I am not freaking kidding.
Hold on.
Now, if it's a dream,
Stop
I'm in panic mode,
stop.
I know I'm awake. Go ahead.
You've gone too far. Okay. What are we talking about? Is this we're talking about nightmares, right?
Except I was awake.
You're saying this really happened to you as an adult?
This really happened to me as an adult. And we know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
I think you can vouch for me that I am given to nothing about superstition and nonsense, even things that other religious people who I respect believe. I mean, a lot of people see, God working in every situation, or they see, angels
Yeah,
and
like
demons
the
wrestling
burnt
behind the scenes.
toast.
I'm
The
not into
burnt
that.
toast looks like Mary or something weird like that. Got it.
Yes, I'm going to scoff at that just like any skeptic. I'm an atheist to that kind of nonsense. So I'm not a sucker for this. And in my brain, I'm gaming all of that out in an instant as I'm looking at this 8 to 9 foot tall shadow figure that I can see with my eyes in a room with me, and I know I'm awake.
What did it look like when you said a shadow figure? So you couldn't see the face?
Couldn't see the face. I could just make out that it had eyes, but I couldn't quite discern how deep or how big they were, and it looked like there was no nose or mouth, but the face was long and pointed. The body was long, and the fingers on this thing, I will never forget the fingers. They were horrifyingly, disproportionately long.
Look, I respect you a lot, but this sounds like it can't be real. But I know you enough to know that you're not going to lie to me, especially about something that's crazy, because
I'd lose face.
You have no advantage to lie here because it just makes you look stupid. So why would you lie about something that makes you look stupid?
I agree. And and like I said, all of this stuff in the midst of my terror, like I'm wrestling with what I understand reality to be. Like how I'm going to die, I'm thinking to myself, and I'm going to get killed by an 8.5 foot shadow figure with 12-inch long fingers.
I can only laugh because you're alive. I'm sorry, dude.
Well, so this thing, even though it has eyes that I can sort of make out, it's like it can't see.
Okay.
And so
wait.
reaches inside the door. No, go ahead.
This story, like you're just glazing over things like, oh, well, it can't see and it has shadow fingers. Dude, I need you to explain. Anyway, go ahead. How do you know it couldn't see?
Because of the way it was feeling around. You know what it looks like when you or somebody else gropes around, like it's dark and you turn off the light suddenly and you can't feel and you reach around.
Yeah.
It was like this thing couldn't tell what all was in my room right away. And so it was feeling to know what was in the room.
Could you see color at this moment in time?
Yeah, but it was all faded. I remember this very vividly, not in black and white. I remember it in that dark blue of nighttime, that almost black, very dark blue with faded colors.
There's a word for that. It's called scotopic vision. That's when the cones in your eyes are muted. Yeah, there's called photopic vision and scotopic vision. That was a test I was just giving you to see if it was legit. Because if you could see colors, I would know it was a dream. Because photopic vision is it's not as sensitive, but you can see colors. Scotopic vision's when you see almost black and white, and that's just the rods in your eyes. So anyway,
you clever man.
That was
I passed the test.
You passed the test. Go ahead.
Okay, good deal. So when the thing first came into the room, it almost felt like it overshot the door. Like, you remember the moment in Signs when there's the video footage from Brazil?
No.
And you haven't seen the aliens yet? And there's like, oh, it's just child's video footage. And then this like 8-foot green alien just passes quickly by the camera at the end of an alley.
I haven't seen it.
It's broad daylight, and it just takes your breath away. It was a great moment in an otherwise okay film. This was like that moment to me. It passed through the door. It's like, there's something there. And then immediately the hand reaches around, like groping to feel its way in, and those fingers were not human. It ducks in like I described, and then it's like it put its back against the wall alongside the bed and was shuffling along the wall so it wouldn't get disoriented. Can you picture what I'm talking about? Like the way you might cling a wall in the darkness?
Yeah, like in Metal Gear Solid, the way he would
yeah, hit the right trigger or whatever it is to grab a wall.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Gears of War. Yeah, I do. And eventually I can see its body language change from I'm getting a sense of the room to I've got a sense of the room and I see you.
Oh my gosh.
Its body language changes. Its head turns slowly. It makes eye contact with me and cocks its head like the dog in your video that you just did.
I thought you said you couldn't see its eyes.
I can see the shape. it's hard to describe because it's a shadow creature, man. Like I can see the shape of where I can see like the expression that would come with eyes and the shape of where eyes would be. I mean, it's not like I'm seeing big, Japanimation dewdrop eyes with gigantic shiny pupils. I can just, it's hard to describe. And so it registers me. That's what I'm trying to communicate.
Okay.
And at that point, its body language changes. It straightens up. It's confident in the room. And it starts moving toward me. And it puts a hand on the bed. And I can see those fingers come right up over the bed. And of course, at this point, I'm like, I have to fight. I'm still looking over it would be my right shoulder as I'm laying face down on the bed, seeing all of this unfold. And I'm trying to do a push-up just to push myself up so I can flip over and fight. And when I realize I can't, I'm like, my only hope now is to yell and hope the neighbors hear. So I go to yell, nothing. I can't talk.
It's like your brain locked up is what this sounds like. This sounds like your brain locked up. And this was just some kind of something your brain did.
It's never happened before. It's never happened since. I'm trying to yell. I'm trying to do a push-up. As this thing gets closer, I start being able to rock my shoulders ever so slightly. And you know how you rock an old stick shift to get out of snow when you're stuck? Oh, you don't have snow.
Yeah, I know.
You can picture what I'm talking about, though.
Same
you
with
run
mud,
between first and reverse to get some momentum. I'm starting to get that. And I don't know what I'm going to do when I get flipped over because this thing is still creeping up my bed slowly. And finally, I get flipped over. And it's like we have this moment of now I'm in a better position. And it knows I'm in a better position. And right at that second that I feel like this thing is about to get resolved physically, like it's going to attack me, it's going to kill me.
So it was clearly going to kill you. That like you could tell it was aggressive.
It was aggressive. It was trying to intimidate me. It wasn't just trying to kill me. It was trying to mess with me first. That's how I felt.
Jeez, man.
It was like it knew what would terrify me the most. It was like it understood all the collection of all my fears and all the scary things I'd ever seen or thought, and it wadded them up into one set of body language and movement. At that moment where I felt like this thing is going to come to a head right now, a car starts coming down the street outside. And you can picture the parallax, the relationship. As the car is coming down the street, the first bit of light from those headlights comes through the Venetian blinds, and it appears, I couldn't see them, but I knew that the light was striking above my head on the headboard. The light was not striking the shadow creature. And I watched the shadow creature, and as the car went by, the light, of course, swung around the room as the car passed my window. And as the light passed through the shadow creature, it just disintegrated. It broke up into a whole bunch of different parts. The car passed. I sat there and looked. No more rustling bag noise. And all of a sudden, boom, I can move. And I pushed myself up out of bed and just, wah! Wah! I just yelled like this Viking
Primal
roar to intimidate whatever was there. Like
I'm sorry. This is like you. This is you recalling
and dude,
a terrifying
it was intimidating, man. 5'8", 160 pounds of pure muscle mixed with a small amount of Mountain Dew fat, whitey tighties, screaming at the room, and all of a sudden, man, I'm ready to do battle. Yes, a shadow creature with 12-inch fingers was gonna murder me, dude. What do you think I'm gonna do?
Okay, go.
So I have no protocol for this. What do you do when a shadow creature invaded your room and tried to murder you, and then car headlights made it vanish?
I don't know if
it's
gun.
Left the house.
I go for the gun.
It's not my house. I don't know where the guns are. So instead, I went for these guns. I'm flexing. Okay. So
this is weird. This is weird, man. And I don't really know how to process this story because you're not an idiot.
Thank you for that.
I mean,
that's a ringing endorsement.
Is this embarrassing to tell me?
No, because it happened. Okay. It's the truth.
Okay.
So, yeah, if I was going to make something up, it would be more elaborate and interesting and sound more like horror movies. it just happened, man. This is what it was.
Okay.
Here's the resolution.
Okay.
I make a 3 or 4 step sprint to the door and flick on the first light and yell as soon as I do in case it somehow appears in the hallway. Nothing there.
Golly,
I reach around out into the hallway and I flip on the next light and I yell again. Nothing. And that hallway is long, dude. And ever since then, I have had an irrational fear of long, poorly lit hallways and something being at the end and cocking its head at me the way that shadow creature did.
How long ago was this?
We'll talk more about that later. I think this was 2004, but I'm having a little trouble remembering where it fits in my timeline. So roughly 2005-ish, give or take a year.
Were you a Christian at this moment in time?
Yeah.
How did you process?
I became a Christian when I was a kid. And then, you know what? That's going to come up more in a minute. It's interesting you bring that up because that is part. Oh, no, that solves it. It was 06. It was 06, and I'll tell you why in a minute. How did I process it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my brain definitely went demon, but I still don't know if the house is clear. So I'm in this weird mixed state of yelling and shouting.
You better tell me you cleared these rooms by kicking the door down and just in whitey-tighties.
That's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. I yelled in every single room in this like 75-room gigantic house, turning on every light. So finally, in the whitey tighties. Yeah, well, I don't know if they were white, but you get the picture. Don't get the picture. You get the gist.
Okay,
let's go with that.
I'm with it. Go for it.
Every light is on, and I've cleared the house. Doors are locked. Nobody has come and gone.
God,
every window is intact. And I am, dude, I feel like I could grab a Volkswagen and flip it over. I have never been physically stronger in my life than I was at that moment, with about 8 gallons of adrenaline just dumped through my system.
Oh yeah, it's fight or flight.
And then once I realized, yeah, and I guess I wanted to fight, but I couldn't for the longest time, and that was so bottled up when I could finally move. And so finally I'm like, I just need to keep making noise. So I'm just yelling and making noise to myself. I go to my phone, I turn it on. I don't remember why it was powered off, but it was. I call my friend Jared. Dear friend, I know he won't judge me for this stupidity. I call him. I wake him up in the middle of the night. I was like, dude, I just got attacked by a shadow creature. I'm at Brad's house. I need you to come over here immediately.
Dude, if you get that phone call, I'm sorry. Look, dude, if you call me, I can't process this story at all. I am done. If you ever call me and you're like, Destin, I just got attacked by a shadow creature.
Sounds legit. Be right there.
What do I do with that information, man? I don't. Oh, like, what did he say? I'm having a hard time keeping composure here, dude.
Okay, that's fine.
What did he say?
But here's the thing. If I called you at 3 a.m. and I clearly had my wits about me and I sounded like me,
dude,
and I was making sense, about you. And you knowing me and I said that, you would at least take seriously that I was in peril and that something was up.
Yeah.
You'd give me that much benefit of the doubt. And Jared did too.
Yeah, I would think that there was something wrong, whether it be, please don't be offended by this, whether it be mentally or emotionally, or, maybe you're having a night terror when you, like, one of my children, he'll just wake up screaming and but he's not really awake. We would just assume something happened like that and I would come to your aid.
Right. And if you called me with the same story, I would assume exactly the same about you. I would assume this person's genuinely in need. They think they experienced something. I care about them. Of course I'm going to help. But I wouldn't be driving over to the house being like, all right, I need to get ready to stop the demons.
Right.
I would assume that was not the case. Well, my buddy, he comes over and he comes in. I just gave him a gigantic hug infused with adrenaline, bone crushing. And he's a big, tough dude, firefighter and everything. And so it was kind of funny just to see the two of us clear the house again. We ran through the whole thing. And I was like, I swear, man, I'm not kidding. I was awake. I can tell you everything I saw. All of my senses were functional. I pinched myself. I was awake. It was in here. It was with me. And all he could say was, I I believe you. Okay.
He did say that?
Yeah. I was like, all right, I don't want to leave the house, but I also don't want to go back to that room. And so you know what we did?
What?
We took all the couches and made a fort.
Yeah, yes, you did. there's totally something to the blanket fort when you were a kid. It's just impenetrable to bad things, right?
It's true, man. So
His name,
we took all the couches.
His name is Jared, right?
Jared.
If I were to call this guy, he would tell me this happened.
Oh, he'll vouch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might do that.
Okay, please do. Record it if you do, please.
Okay.
So we made this fort. We pushed all the couches into a box, and then we sat in this defensible position in the middle of the living room and tried to sleep. I don't remember getting much sleep after that, and I have never been happier to see the sun come up.
Really?
It felt that is the point at which it really felt like this was over. Hands down, most horrified I've ever been or could imagine being.
So how do you explain it?
For the longest time, I thought, I mean, as soon as the sun came up, I assumed my brain did something. But what I couldn't reconcile is why has it never done that before? And why was I so sure I was awake? I remember every physical sensation. That didn't jive for me. Now, obviously, you hear the stories about aliens and demons and ghosts, and as a history guy, and those stories date back to the beginning of time.
This sounds like the Incubus.
Oh, the Incubus. Explain. What do you mean?
The Incubus, I've heard of Incubus and Succubus. It's like this demon thing that would, in Middle Ages or whatever, they thought would come and visit people in the night. And like, specifically, if I recall, man, I should have prepared. If I recall, the Incubus was this demon-like thing that would come and wake up females at night and try to prey on them sexually.
Yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah, that is right, correct?
I think the legend of the Incubus actually has its origins in ancient Persia.
Really?
If I recall correctly.
Really?
Yeah, and you're describing it exactly right. Same with the succubus. And it's interesting that, there's oftentimes a sexual dimension to nightmare stories and things like that. I don't recall that dimension in my nightmare story. But how do I want to put this? Hold that thought, because it does sound exactly like that, but I did not make that connection.
Okay.
So you asked me, where did my brain go with this? I don't know. I couldn't sort it out. I definitely entertained, maybe I misunderstand the Bible and religion, and this really is a manifestation and some terrifying thing, but it didn't completely check out in my brain. Maybe I just was visited by something. Why? What would be the point of that? Why has it never happened before? And ultimately, I guess I just let it slip into my memory and said, I guess my brain did something weird, but I don't know what to do with it.
Okay, how about this? I've been sandbagging, and I know somebody else that has had an experience like this, and they are here at my house. And after a real quick break, I'm going to have them tell their story. What do you think?
Perfect. I think that's where we need to go next. Compare notes on other stories like it. I had no idea you had this coming.
I know. I've been sandbagging. I know you said you had something to do with this thing that woke you up in the middle of the night, and then this person has the same thing, so they're here. Can I go get them?
Yes. Game on.
All right. Let's do an ad real quick. Do you hear a delay on your end?
I think it is delaying because of the clap.
Do you want to do 1, 2, 3, 4 and see where we're at?
No, say 4 in time with me.
Okay, ready.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4. Did it delay?
It was a full 1/1000 delay.
You want to try my side?
Yep.
Okay. 1,
4.
What? Oh, I see what you're doing. Because it's me from the future.
It's future me from a time when we're not talking about our worst nightmares in our underwear.
I know. Okay, so it is me from the future, Matt, because we're recording this after we recorded the whole episode, and it's to talk about our sponsor.
So weird. It's also future me.
Yeah, it's weird how that works. So this episode is sponsored by Hellofresh, which I am a gigantic fan of. I'm holding 3 recipes in my hand. Would you like to explain what Hellofresh is before I make you jealous by reading you what I had for dinner tonight?
Yeah, yes, and then I'm up for the jealousy part. HelloFresh is a company that sends delicious, ready-to-cook meals to your house. And you know this about me. If something is not delicious, I will not be able to bring myself to say that it is delicious because I make a weird face and you can hear it when I'm recording. This is legitimately good. I have never liked salmon in my life. HelloFresh sent me salmon out of obligation. I ate it after preparing it, and it was wonderful.
It's fantastic. I had that one
I'm
too.
sold.
It is fantastic. Tonight, we had Melty Monterey Jack burgers. Have you tried this one yet?
No, I want that one.
It's awesome. Yeah, it has a good bun that they send and everything. It's legit. Anyway, the way HelloFresh works is they send you all the ingredients. There's no food waste. It's the perfect amount for every individual meal. They send you ridiculously straightforward recipes. No joke, my 8-year-old cooks our HelloFresh meals because he wants to learn how to cook, and it's that simple. And they're great.
And the recipes are just straight up cool looking. Like somebody who understands design and understand how a person reads a sheet of paper put a ton of time into making this so that it is pleasing to the eye. You get it as soon as you look at it. There's no confusion to it. And it's the kind of thing that was so nice. I got done and I was like, we need to get a binder so we can keep these because it'll make me look like I'm a sophisticated cook.
By the way, they're dietitians.
Which is a filthy lie. Yeah, they have like 2 dietitians review all of this to make sure that it's legitimately good for you.
Yep, it's awesome. Anyway, if people want to support No Dumb Questions, it's really easy to do that. You can go to HelloFresh.com and use the promo code NDQ30.
Which is $30 off your first order, right?
The first week, yeah. And these things are like less than $10 per meal. So $30 goes a really long way.
So it's just a straight up simple website, HelloFresh.com. And when you're setting up your first order, use the promo code NDQ30 and you get $30 off your first week.
That's it. HelloFresh.com, promo code NDQ30.
I have to admit, it's been really a nice change of pace to be the future version of ourselves that aren't engaged in a super spooky campfire style conversation. But we probably need to get back to the scary nightmare stuff.
This is the segment coming up where I surprised you with the other person. Remember?
I remember it, but also don't because of the butterfly effect and the future and past versions of me. I think we ruined the timeline. Let's just do it.
Okay, Matt, I have somebody here who has had a similar experience. And
Fellow
it is
weirdo.
also someone that I don't think is crazy.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I married you.
Okay, so Matt, I think
Tara.
you know Tara.
I know you can vouch for Tara.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, because from internet friendship and from when you guys were at my house last week.
That's right. So here's the deal. Tara said she had an experience similar to this a long time ago when we were dating.
Yes. When we were dating.
And I thought you were a little crazy. You didn't hear it, but Matt just told me this really long story about a creature that came into the room with him. And I don't want to explain it to you. I don't want to describe what the creature looked like.
Okay.
But I want you to explain what happened to you.
Okay. How much detail?
Just whatever you're comfortable with.
Tell the truth. I just embarrassed myself with my story.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
Well, mine might be
true.
completely different. I don't know. Anyway, so Destin and I started dating in the fall, and we kind of set precedents that we wouldn't spend the night at each other's houses, and that we laid down some laws as far as what we thought was a good boundary for a relationship that wasn't bound by marriage, I guess. Is that the way to say it?
Long story short,
Okay.
we had rules on how long you could stay at my place and how long I could stay at your place and how far we would let, kisses and stuff like that go.
Yeah.
We had rules.
We had rules.
Right.
So one of them...
Rules to restrict your degree of liking each other so it wouldn't get weird.
I guess.
Okay.
Anyway, so we... one night, I had fallen asleep in Destin's bedroom in his bed, and I guess he had fallen asleep after that. And I had woken up, which, you know, we were about to break one of the limits that we had set, and I had woken up and looked up, and over the foot of the bed, there was a black shadow figure, and it was in the somewhat shape of a person, and it had somewhat wings, and it was probably about 2 feet off the end of the bed and probably about 3 feet up into the air is where its feet started. And it looked down at me, and I'm scared telling this story. It looked down at me, and I looked up at it, and I couldn't move. I was laying there next to Destin, and...
You couldn't move?
No, I was just laid there, and
You didn't tell me that part.
And I went to say something, and it was like I didn't have to verbally say it with my mouth, but I was able to say something to what I felt was a demon, and I said something to it and looked at it, and after I finished saying it...
What'd you say?
I said, and I, at the time, was a baby Christian and had chosen to follow the Lord, but hadn't been baptized, so I didn't know what words or what to say, and I just said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, and you need to go away. And it looked down at me, and it disappeared, and I freaked out, and I woke you up, and you don't remember any of it.
That's true.
Wow.
I don't remember any of it.
And I, to this day, I can see the image of that thing that hovered over me and was like...
So what did it specifically look like? You've never described this to me, have you?
No, I guess not. It was like a black smoky shadow in the shape of a what I would have deemed as a man that may have had a more of a triangular face as opposed to a round face, and then it also had similar like not ginormous wings, but it had like enough, either a wings or a cape on, or it had enough of an arch under the armpit that it wasn't like it was an arm, but it was like hovering.
This is something you can see in your head right now.
Oh yes, I can still see it. It was 17 years ago.
Is there any other dream you've ever had that you could describe a detail that specifically ever?
I feel like I was awake though. Like, I feel like I was absolutely awake. Like, my heart was racing. I was scared. I was communicated. Not a lucid dream. I have had lucid dreams where I could change the story line and then go back into a different storyline. That's completely different. This, like, in my mind at that time, this was something that was hovering over me while I slept and was in the room with me.
How many people have you told about it?
I have told Destin a couple times, but apparently he didn't remember.
And now then I was the second person and the internet was the third?
Apparently so. I mean, I can remember the positioning of the room, and like Destin only lived there for a very short time frame. I mean, I can remember the bedding.
Why haven't you told anybody this?
I mean, it's not something I run. You won't believe what happened to me 17 years ago that lasted about 3 seconds. No, I don't know how long it lasted. It felt like a long time.
The point is it embarrassing?
No, I don't feel like it's embarrassing. I just feel like it's weird and no one would believe me or care.
Okay.
What do you make of it now?
I believe it was a demon. I believe it was something came into the room and had felt like it was winning a battle, that it came in to check on its progress. And I kind of put my foot down after that night as far as making sure limits were in place, because I didn't want to lose. I didn't want that battle to be won by what I felt like was something that hovered over me while I slept.
Like you felt like it was a force of evil.
I did. felt like it was a force of evil in that it shook me enough for me to change, for me to make sure things didn't get crossed, you know?
Okay, Matt.
There are so many dots that I'm connecting in my brain right now. Go ahead.
So I was sandbagging. I didn't tell you that she had that story. And there's a lot about the story I didn't know, actually.
So I hinted at my story with you, I don't know how long ago. I told you a rough outline of a couple details about having a really bad dream once.
Yeah.
And you did not counter with this story.
Right. Because I had forgot about it. I told you what we were going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, he said, hey, this is what we're going to talk about tonight. Tell me over lunch. And I said, that's kind of like the thing that happened to me. So.
Here's the 10-second version of what happened to me, Tara. I was alone at a house that was not my own home. I heard a noise. I woke up. I looked over my shoulder down a long hallway, and I saw an 8 or 9 foot black shadow creature with a triangular face and barely any facial features, maybe kind of a hollow eye socket kind of thing, inching down the hallway, groping its way through the dark, then feeling its way into my room and making its way up along the bed until it finally put its hands on the bed before a passing car cast light into the room that disintegrated the creature. And I could not move until it was gone, nor could I speak.
Oh, that's freaky.
Why?
Yeah. Mine didn't, like yours apparently was coming at you. Mine was in the same face, yeah, absolutely.
What?
I have the chills. But mine was not coming after me. Mine was like watching in...
Curious.
Not necessarily curiosity, but in like, I felt like it was the confident person in the room. Does that make sense? Like it was...
Yes.
It was like, oh yeah. Like, I don't know.
And I was telling Destin just a minute ago, I saw when the shadow creature in my room flipped the switch from I'm getting oriented. It was almost like a dog sniffing out in the darkness what it's looking for. And I saw the moment when it figured out where I was and changed its demeanor and went into intimidation and attack mode.
Oh, wow.
It was like a predator. It was the most horrifying thing I have experienced or can imagine.
Yeah.
But here's the thing I would say about it, Tara. And we've hung out a little bit. I think you're hyper credible. I get the sense you don't think I'm completely insane.
No.
I swear this happened. And I swear this happened in the empirical sense where my 5 senses were turned on. I was aware. I ran physical checks to make sure I was awake and not dreaming. I was conscious of how insane this seemed, even as it was happening.
Yes.
And in the sense that we know things through our 5 senses, that thing was in the room and I saw it and I encountered it and I heard it and it was real. In the sense of how reality is, it doesn't line up with how reality is. So I understand there's some problems with my story, but I'm telling the truth about what I saw.
Yes. No, I absolutely saw it. Like I can't even, and that's why Destin said, have you had dreams like this? It absolutely did not feel like a dream. It 100%, he was in the room and he did not see it and I could not wake him for him to see it, you know? Like...
Were you still terrified when you?
Oh yeah.
When you were able to move and respond and turned on lights and all of that.
I couldn't move until it left. I couldn't respond, right. But it was like it heard me, even though I couldn't move my mouth. It could hear the words that I, in a sense, commanded. Does that make sense? Like even though I couldn't open my mouth and say words, when I was able to get my composure, I'm sorry. Like
weird. This is what's so funny to me. Obviously, you guys both had an experience I don't understand, so I'm the skeptic here. But this is what's so interesting. Your go-to was to go to the Lord, God Almighty. Matt's was to scream like a grizzly bear in his tidy whities.
I did reach for the Lord as soon as I got my composure. And
So what he did is he went.
It seemed right at the time. I was in a very honest place.
He kicked in the doors, cleared the house, growling at each room. Oh,
if I had been by myself, yeah, I don't know about that.
I think I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. I don't know what to make of this story.
No.
I mean, I'm a Christian. I believe in spirits and things, but I don't know what to make of these stories.
I mean, I haven't talked about this story in
17 years.
17 years, and I can still sketch the figure. I can still sketch the room. I can still sketch the. I mean, I still get chills talking about it.
Yes.
Like,
I told Destin that the first thing I cleared in the house was the incredibly long hallway outside the bedroom that the shadow creature, I could hear. It made its way up that hall.
yeah.
As soon as I regained control, the first thing I did was clear that hallway, like ducking my head out a few times. And to this day, long, poorly lit hallways, looking all the way down them, it brings me back to that moment. It still freaks me out.
Yeah.
So Matt,
Yeah.
Tara obviously thought it was a demon. That was her go-to.
And what I think woke me up was, I think it hit something, or it knocked something on your desk right there at the foot of the bed by the window. And so I heard a noise, and I think that's what woke me up to aim that
How
way.
about that?
But I don't know.
And for me, it was something from the outside coming into play too. Those car lights.
I don't know. Well, I was going to say it was in front of a window too. So I don't know if it was something outside the window, but it was something that sound or whatever that made me mentally wake and look there.
Oh, you're saying two different things. You're saying a sound is what woke you up in the first place.
Right. To see it. Either that or
Yeah, which is exactly what happened with me. It was a sound.
Yeah.
I heard that rustling, like plastic bag sound.
Oh, I don't know.
And what I was going to say earlier and forgot to, because I'm a little freaked out in my office at night talking about this myself right now, is I remember every detail about that room as well. I remember where the furniture was.
Yes.
I can even remember things about the pattern of the bedspread that was on that bed.
Yeah.
I've stayed in hotel rooms and people's houses all over the place since then. I don't remember any of those details. They didn't internalize.
Mm-mm.
This moment is freeze framed in my brain.
Yeah.
All the details.
Yeah.
So here I sit.
And I've had a lot of bad
I think we're
dreams.
about to ask the same question. I'll let you ask it though, Destin.
I don't know. I mean, I was just going to say I have the two most credible people in my life. Neither one of you have ever lied to me. I've given you plenty of opportunities to my knowledge. So
I think I've always told you the truth.
yeah. So here's the deal. What's the deal with I don't know. I mean, this is your testimony of what happened. What am I to do with this information? To me, it seems true.
Be thankful
what would you
that
do
you
with this
haven't
information if it was
Just be thankful you hadn't
Yes.
had it. I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a really good response.
that I can't. It's not like I look and I think, okay, I hope I don't have that again, right? And yeah,
Cool.
I think it's interesting, Tara, that your brain went straight to demon.
oh,
And I think it's really interesting that me, as someone, I'm a pastor's kid, raised around Christianity. Yeah, I mean, this is something that very much dates back to my earliest upbringing in childhood, and my brain didn't entirely go there.
yeah. And I grew up in a very rough house, so
So let me ask you this, Matt. Are there cases of this happening to people that aren't of faith or think about things like that? Or is this a common thing to humans?
And there's the $1 billion question right there. Yeah, the way I was going to get us to that point was just asking this: why do other people see something like that and their brain goes straight to aliens?
Oh.
Because you think about what we're describing. I mean, think about the head shape we just described.
yeah,
We both picture demons, Slender Man, monster, and the Slender Man thing is actually a very recent urban legend. But the descriptions of something that looks like the Slender Man, this tall, dark creature that I saw, date back centuries to the classical world, to the ancient world. People have been seeing this stuff in every culture in the world forever and trying to wrestle with how to make sense of it. There's different names for it in every culture. It's only very recently, in the age of science fiction and really the 20th century forward, that people have had these experiences and they see the triangular shape of a Roswell alien instead of the triangular shape of some kind of demonic horned creature. I think it might be one and the same. It's a similar phenomenon, and we make of it what we're used to. And maybe there's something spiritual to it. I want to go down that road. But in answer to your question, I just internalized this. It changed the way I view hallways, and it changed the way I go to sleep a little bit. And this was just a thing that happened in my life that for a period of 7 or 8 years, whatever it was just in a place of not peace. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what happened there. I'm thankful it never happened again. And I guess I just move on. And then I came across somebody else who was describing going through a struggle with something they called sleep paralysis. And I'd never heard that term before. And as they described this thing that they were going to counseling for that was ruining their sleep, the details started to sound exactly like what I had experienced. And so I did some homework on it. And sleep paralysis is a phenomenon where you wake up at exactly the wrong moment in the sleep cycle. You've got, when you go to sleep and you've got that moment where you're like, ugh! And like I make fun of Camilla when she does it, and she's nice enough not to make fun of me.
Like somewhere right before REM or something?
Or even right before you just fall asleep, period. It's that hypnic jerk, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like what happens in school when you're nodding off in class. And whoa. Well, that, I think, if I understand this right, maybe you'd know better than me, that's when your brain is turning off your motor functions so that you won't do the things that happen in the dream state you're about to enter into. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, again, not my expertise here, when sleep paralysis happens, your brain is still in physical shutdown mode, but you wake up a tiny bit early in terms of being conscious. And then what your brain is doing, it maps onto the real world. And people describe these encounters with things that should only exist in the realm of the mind or the alien or the spiritual, depending on how you read it. And all of a sudden, they're seeing this stuff in real life, and you just can't process it. I mean, you react like I did, or with more composure and with less tighty-whities like Tara did. And so I got really curious about this, and I started asking around. And a lot of people, like you, because I asked you about this, Destin, just responded with, no, I've never had that happen. Some people responded with like, oh yeah, I had this dream, like Freddy Krueger was chasing me. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. I don't mean like bad dream. I mean like change your life. You encountered something alien or spiritual.
Yeah.
But if I'd asked you, Tara, you would have perked right up because you've experienced it.
Yeah. And I think, I just medically minded, I think that when it comes to sleep paralysis, by still being asleep, but yet awake, right? Or being asleep mentally, but awake to the world. With that thought of what sleep paralysis is in the medical terminology, I can't sit back and say that's what I had happened, right? Like I just can't.
You anticipated my next question.
But yeah, you're right. Is it a possibility? It's a possibility. But I have had lucid dreams. I've had times when I was asleep but could control something, or when I was, so like to me that's very different to see, to compare any of those experiences ever than to what happened one night 17 years ago. I mean, I get much less sleep nowadays with 4 kids than I did then.
Sure. I'll hang out with your kids. They do pretty well, but Sure. I get it.
So what you're saying, Matt, is from what you've read, it's possible that this is a weird, like there's this handoff that has to happen. It's like getting off the interstate onto the service road. When your brain's doing that, it's trying to disengage from the normal neural pathways for your motor functions and all that, and it's going into unconsciousness. At that point, there's something that screws up and you don't completely get off that off ramp.
Yeah, as I understand it, it's just a moment where your asleep brain and your awake brain are both on at once. And normally that's not supposed to happen.
Gotcha.
Could you buy that?
For people who might have this happen on multiple occasions? Yeah. I don't know. I just can't. It is a possibility that that's what happened 17 years ago. But with how much I felt and how much I saw and how much was embedded into my memory, I can't fully say, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and I wouldn't ask you to. Having been through this once and only once, like you, it makes me feel better to hear about this phenomenon and assume that's what happened. I can't do anything else with it. Like for me, let's game it out a little bit. Let's say there is an enemy of God, Satan, demons, whatever. And let's say that for some reason, I was targeted that one time and only that one time in my life. Could be. Why wouldn't they take another run at me? Why would that only happen once, especially since it didn't cross my mind to religiously respond to that? It seems like if I was on some kind of hit list, we'd run that exercise more than once or repeatedly to mess with my brain. And so, I don't know, I like writing and narrative, and we talk about this a lot. And for me, the motivation of the shadow figure character doesn't make any sense. Like, why show up? Why creep up on me?
Okay, so here's something that's really interesting. There's this YouTube channel called Drug Lab, and, you know, I'm assuming that parents have not let their children listen to this episode, but whatever. But on Drug Lab, it's these people that try these different types of drugs in Amsterdam or wherever they are and just see what the effects are.
I would assume Amsterdam then.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's in the Netherlands. Anyway, there's this drug called DMT. I don't even know what it is, but the users of it all report this same hallucination. And it's an extremely specific creature that they see called a machine elf. I know this sounds dumb, yeah, but you know, I saw this one time and I was like, there's no way the brain does that. And so I started to look it up, and sure enough, people that do this illicit drug or whatever it is, they all say that they see the same creature. So
why?
I don't know. It's like the machinery of your brain on this one particular drug does a certain thing. So like if you Google DMT, that's Delta Mike Tango, DMT machine elf, you'll see that this is what people see. It's really weird. How do you say that? You know how to speak chemical.
Dimethyltryptamine?
Apparently that is a drug that people do.
That was good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So anyway.
This creature, I'm looking at pictures. What in the world?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like this is magic land. These people, like, wow.
Yeah, this is some 70s.
You don't get here
right
on your own. Right.
Okay, so we're going to the Wikipedia page on this specific drug. And
I was trying to figure out what it was comparable to.
I don't know, but it can produce specific mythical experiences. But there's one thing that people say. Yeah, it's even on the Wikipedia page. It's like, yeah, when people do this drug, they see machine elves. So it's weird. Anyway, my point is, it's possible that there's a specific thing that's happening in the human brain that happens the same way for everyone.
That isn't a possibility. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm looking at this. Some of the machine elves are cute and more harmless. But these images that people see on the same drug of Baphomet, like the horned creature that sometimes is associated with Satanism, sometimes is associated with, like, I don't know, pagan religions from way back in the day. Like, there's such consistency in these images that people have made.
Did yours have horns?
No.
Mine did not either.
Mine looked like an exaggerated, tall, skinny dude with a ridiculously long, triangular face. And fingers that would not quit. I think that's the scariest part. The way those fingers wrapped around the frame of the door as it felt its way along the wall. Oh, that's not going away.
I couldn't see fingers because of the, like, whether it was a cape or a wing, I couldn't see fingers because it was kind of just standing, hovering. Does that make sense? Like its hands were in front of it.
Yeah. Yeah, since it was monochromatic, you wouldn't be able to distinguish.
Yeah.
So
did your parents ever have something like that happen, Tara?
I hadn't asked.
I'd be curious to find out. I asked my dad after this happened because I was curious if it might be some weird thing that runs in the family. And also, I trust my dad. I trust his wisdom about spiritual things.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what he'd say about that. And he countered with a story of when he was a kid. Dad was not raised around religion or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was Christmas Eve when he was little, and he remembers laying in bed, absolutely awake, described it the same way you and I did, aware of surroundings, tons of detail, more detail than you would ever recall in a dream, definitely in my house, definitely in my bed. I know the house where this dream happened. He described it like I can picture it. And he said he heard a noise in the hallway, and he looked up and saw a shadow coming down the hallway. And then a creature came around the corner of the hall and stood in the doorway. Mm-hmm. And it was a short creature with a long pointy face and sharp teeth, gaunt, and he said he knew immediately it was evil Santa Claus. Not kidding. And this gaunt, evil Santa Claus slowly turned its head and looked at my dad and cackled. And he did the laugh. Like this sinister, horrifying laugh. And Dad started screaming for Grandma. And I don't remember if she came in or he was able to move eventually and got to her. Mm-hmm. And he described the whole thing. Oh, yeah, they went out and they sat in the living room. And she turned on lights. And she explained it was a dream and all of this stuff. But Dad remembers that to this day in vivid detail from when he was a very young boy. Mm-hmm.
That's
interesting that we've both had the experience just once.
Yeah. I look back and I relate it to the place that I was in life, right? Like I was at a point at which I was either going to pursue the Lord being my Lord and reigning over my life, or I was just going to be somebody who claimed Christianity whenever I wanted. So because of the time frame it was in my life, never related it to absolutely anything else.
Let me turn over one more card in light of what you're saying. When this happened, and remember earlier I was struggling to remember the time when it happened, and now I've got it in the timeline because I remember what I was going through at the moment. I've referenced before that I was raised a Christian, that effectively it fell apart, and effectively I was an atheist. Ashamed. Yeah, I was ashamed to say that. I mean, I think it would have hurt people I care about for me to have said that when it was happening. Maybe I'm far enough after the fact that I'm okay with admitting that I was there for a period of time. And that was the period of time. We stayed at that place for a few weeks with my friend while we were in transition from one place to another. Things hadn't gone well in a church situation, and I was frustrated and grossed out. Very wrongly in retrospect, I put that on other people when I, in fact, played a great part in what went wrong there. my theology broke, my ideas broke. I think I had a backward view of the Bible and God and everything. I was frustrated with the whole culture war thing. Just everything about my compass was spinning. And I did not come out of this the same. Like, the version of faith that I came out of this with is very different than the one I had before. But this was the epicenter. This was the middle point of that process. And I did not connect those dots until a few months ago when a friend of mine called and said, I need to talk to you right now. It wasn't like, can we talk? It was, stop what you're doing. I have to tell you something. You're going to think I'm crazy. And he said, they had just had a baby. And he said, last night we were in bed. I woke up and there was something in the house with us. And it was talking to me through the baby monitor. He's like, I know this is ridiculous and stupid. I'm not given to this stuff. But I could hear it. It wasn't a language I understood, but I could hear it. And it was so dark that I couldn't quite make it out, but it was there. This thing was with us, and I could tell that what it was saying was threatening the baby who was sleeping by my wife. And he said, I prayed sincerely for the first time in a long time, and I was able to move. I was able to respond, turn on lights or whatever, and things got better. But what he described was that he was in almost the same place I was in when it happened to me. He's like, I think it's because I'm struggling. I think it's because I don't know what to think, and I'm wrestling with what I believe and why I believe it. And maybe I'm vulnerable was the language he used. I don't know that I would use that same language for my situation, but immediately it just clicked. Like, that was the most challenging moment of my entire life, spiritually, intellectually, in terms of identity, who I am, where I'm going. I was a brand new dad at that point. And there were a billion things going on in my brain. And then this thing happens then and only then. It had never happened to this friend of mine who called me, except for at that moment right there. What you're describing had never happened to you before or since, except at that pivotal moment on something that you guys had processed spiritually together and really wanted to get right. To me, that sounds like a pattern of there being a spiritual element to a physically describable or physically explainable phenomenon. Can it be both?
Both as in, can it be a physical and a spiritual? Or can it be both, meaning...
Yeah.
What he's saying is if this is something that's easy to explain away using science,
mm-hmm.
Is it possible that it happens at a certain moment in your life because it's a tool used by the whatever you want to call it?
Absolutely.
Well, this was a pretty light episode, Matt. Should we kick it over to the sponsor?
I was just thinking.
No. Can we stay on this a little longer, buddy?
Yeah,
or do you
ahead.
feel like we really need to? That silence was just me genuinely processing. And I know you're the quickest among us to get uncomfortable with that.
So God allows us to see things and hear things at certain points in our life, right? So crazily, what if this stuff is happening more than we know it's happening, and he allowed that moment in time for us to see that it's happening, so it does change the trajectory?
There's a time when I would have just straight up argued with you on that point.
Mm-hmm.
When I would have just said, I don't know, anything gets difficult and religious people are just going to go to, I don't know, so God. And a-religious people are just going to say, I don't know, so aliens. I mean, answer a scenario with a Christian movie or answer a scenario with Prometheus. Either way, it's kind of a shrug way to just dismiss the unknown with something we can give credit for the unknown. But at this point, life has humbled me enough that I'm prepared to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have no answer forthcoming. Yeah, I went to seminary. They didn't cover this. I don't know. I am perhaps the most skeptical Christian I've ever met. I really believe in the scientific method. I'm a huge fan of empirical evidence. In my heart, when people tell me stories about amazing things that God has done or miracles that happen in some far off corner of the world, I'm always in my mind like, of course. It happened in a place where it couldn't be documented and nobody's around to tell the story and no one had a cell phone or took a picture. Of course. Oh, weird how the miracles always happen at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday mornings at that building. Oh, how convenient. I am a skeptic. I know there's a billion people out there yelling at this podcast right now, like, you can't be religious and be a skeptic. I am. I'm here because I've looked at the data and it points most to God for me. And I respect that not everybody's going to see it that way. But I'm at a place where, I don't know, I hear stuff I can't talk about here that I can't reconcile. So I guess I'm at a place where I think what you're throwing out is a valid theory, but I'm not prepared to say I've solved it and I know.
It is possible that we both had sleep paralysis, and whatever our fear was at that time was whatever crept up. I mean, it is a possibility.
Speaking of creepy things, dude, the audiobook we're going to do next is unreal. Devil in the White City, good choice.
I am so glad. I really thought it would get your attention. And we've talked about this before, but there are two stories going on. Devil in the White City is by Erik Larsen, by the way, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. And there are two stories in this book. One is about the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, which sounds so boring on the surface, but then you realize what goes into pulling off something like this. And we're not talking about it, right? So I'm not.
No, we've never talked about
the actual content here.
We're going to do a full episode where we go through the events of the book, and we're going to Chicago, right? You and I are going to record that episode in Chicago.
Yeah, well, it's the next episode up. The next episode is the book discussion of Devil in the White City by Erik Larsen.
Yes. Obviously, we're sponsored by Audible. So if you want to listen to this book, go to audible.com/NoDumnQuestions. We did a big Ready Player One book review episode. A lot of you waited to listen to that because you hadn't read the book. Go ahead and get ahead of the game and go get Devil in the White City by Erik Larsen so you're ready for the next episode. It's going to be cool. And dude, I want to talk to you right now, but I don't think we should.
Yeah, let me gingerly tiptoe around this so we can make some plans and so I can tell people what I like about it in a very general way.
Okay, cool.
It is very hard as a history guy to explain the feel of a moment in history in a way that people today get. And this Erik Larsen guy, I think that's one of the biggest achievements of the book. You feel like you're in 1893. And when I got done with the book, I was sad because it was over. I was sad because the subject matter is dark for half the book. But I was sad because I wasn't born at a time where I could go to this fair. It is so magical and fascinating.
Yeah, that's what it did for me. It actually put me in the moment. And to understand the importance of having people from all over the world and like competing against Paris, we're getting into it. I need to stop. You have to understand what the moment was like. Context is king in history. And that's what he did. He made me feel the emotions contextually. And I thought that was really, really smart.
Well, how many big, amazing things from even just a couple generations ago do you see? And you're like, wow, there that is. But how often do you stop to consider what had to be an agreed upon set of ideas and values that would motivate enough people to throw money and time and energy to the degree that it would take to make something that incredible? And this book unpacks the story.
Yeah, but it was like the space race of that time, technologically and culturally. We need to stop talking right now, getting too excited. Anyway, go to audible.com/NoDumbQuestions, get the book. It's going to be a good episode. I was intimidated by how long that audiobook was, but I just tore through it.
Well, it breaks it up into little chunks. So you really can get little nuggets of it in between things. If you have it on your app, on your phone, grab a few minutes here, grab a few minutes there. Do you use the listen to it faster feature on the Audible app?
I actually don't, but what I do use is I use the jump 15 seconds backwards or forwards feature because sometimes I want to, you can also bookmark sections in the app. Like if there's something that's really,
What?
Yeah, in the app while you're listening to the book.
That would have been helpful.
Yeah, I've been doing that. So like things I want to talk about to you, I've been just tapping the button and bookmarking it so I can go back and get to it easily. It's a cool app. I dig it.
You know how I've been doing it?
How?
We listened to it in the car and I'm like, Camilla, use your pencil to write a thing on some paper. And then I say it. And then she uses her brain to tell her hand to write it with a pencil on some paper. What was that sound?
That was, so I'm actually listening to Nancy Drew Listen.
At home, the most I walk is around the mall with my sister.
Yeah, so my daughter's listening to Nancy Drew, and it's a really short book, so I got it as well. And so I just chew through that on my commute. That way I have something relatable I can talk to my daughter about, like specific characters in her books. It's awesome. My kids are into it now, too.
Good dadding.
Yeah, it works.
I've recommended this book to so many people before this podcast. Anybody who's traveling to Chicago, I'm like, hey, read this book and then go to these things. You'll love it. No one has come back to me and said, you're an idiot. The book was terrible. People have told me I'm an idiot about other things, but not about this book. It makes you feel like a kid. It captures that sense of wonder and fear all in one book. And it's a really magnificent cocktail for feeling alive and energized by a story. So I hope everybody reads it. You're going to love it.
You know, I'm going to say this one thing. This is the only thing I'm going to tell you right now. And then we'll talk about the rest in Chicago on that episode. You know what was fascinating to me? The way they kept the fire hydrants from freezing in 1893. I had never thought about that, but that was genius. And it was like a 1-sentence line in the book, but it took me back to like the engineering logistics of how to keep pipes from freezing in Chicago back then. That was smart.
There are so many, no pun intended, little nuggets like that make it really, really fun. I don't know what you're laughing at. What? We're not talking about the book.
It was clever because you knew the exact line I was talking about in the book.
It was intended. You caught me.
No. Anyway,
okay, so real quick before we go, where do you want to see when we actually go?
I want to see where the Ferris wheel was because there's got to be some type of concrete foundation still in the ground. Don't tell me if there is. I want to see that.
Okay.
I also want to see what you and Emily were talking about in that other episode about the Japanese gardens there, because that still exists, I'm told. Mm-hmm. Those two places.
Still there.
Yeah. And of course, the house or what's left of it or whatever.
Yeah. Or the spot where the house was. I've never seen that. I've never been to Inglewood that I know of. So
yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it would be fun also to talk about the architects and the people who made the fair happen at the cemetery where they're all buried.
All buried in Chicago?
Several of them are buried in the same cemetery.
No way.
And if I remember right, the cemetery, the size of the monuments there has the same social pecking order that Burnham and Root were always butting up against with the other big, important, wealthy socialites of the age.
No way. You know, that's the thing. I like to go visit graves of people I read books about. I know that's weird, but like they're called grave rubbings. I have one of C.S. Lewis's grave. I have another from a guy named Eugene B. Sledge from With the Old Breed.
Where's Lewis buried?
Lewis is in Oxfordshire.
He is?
Yeah.
Like in town?
No, there's a little parish outside of town. But yeah, I went there. I kind of made a little trip just to do it.
Did you go to the Eagle and Child while you were there?
Of course, the Bird and the Baby. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's right. I've asked you that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
Okay, we're getting too excited about this. Anyway, if you want to support the podcast, go to audible.com/NoDumnQuestions. Get Devil in the White City. You're going to love it. Let's get back to the episode.
Would you guys be okay with me adding a little bit more data to the conversation real quick?
What do you mean?
Well, here's something else that I discovered in researching this. There are 3 experiences. I mean, you're talking about this drug where everybody sees the machine elf. There are basically 3 prototypes for what people experience with sleep paralysis.
Okay.
And understand that this research includes people who are in a bed in a hospital being monitored and filmed. I watched a YouTube video of a guy experiencing sleep paralysis under surveillance. So this isn't just anecdotes after the fact and people describing it. It's as scientific as it can be. And these 3 prototypes are something that you nailed it, Destin. One is called the Incubus. And the Incubus sounds like what you experienced based on the description, Tara. Uh-huh. It's something that is first recorded, a couple thousand years in the past. People in Persia talked about this, so that actually be like 2,500 years ago. And in this scenario, there's a creature. It's smaller than you. It is winged, often horned. It appears at the foot of the bed, and people feel as though this creature moves up the bed, and oftentimes they feel like it's sitting on them or holding them down. And even though it's not that big, it feels like a tremendous weight, and they can't push it off of their chest. And I'm gonna forward you guys some pictures of these that I was digging around and finding on the internet. It's amazing. In sculpture and art and even classical art, we get the same depiction from across cultures and centuries of this incubus phenomenon. So there's something consistent there. The second expression is what I encountered. It's called the Intruder. It's usually an abnormally tall creature. It's thin, it's slender, triangular shaped head, long, expressive arms and fingers, and it is more likely to move around the bed or to interact with the sleeper in some way. The third and least common of the three is the straight up out of body experience, where you feel sleep paralysis, but your body goes somewhere else and you are tangibly interacting with the world around you with that body. Those are the most confusing. And apparently all three of these can mingle a little bit, but those are the three basic types. And so I wanted to, and you know I did this, Destin, but I haven't shared any of the results with you.
Right.
I wanted to just use the power of the interwebs to ask if anybody else had experienced this, and I got really interesting feedback on it.
How did you ask?
I think I tweeted it from the No Dumb Questions. Just add NDQ.
Really?
What is our Twitter?
At No Dumb Qs?
People responded, and then I tweeted it on my Twitter account as well. I got a bunch of responses there.
What did you say? Like, has anybody had sleep paralysis?
Yeah, I asked it two different ways. I asked one time, describe the worst nightmare you ever had. And then another time I straight up asked about sleep paralysis. And the sleep paralysis request got me more specific feedback, but the horrible nightmare question got me some feedback from people who hadn't heard of sleep paralysis, but had experienced it.
Really?
Here's what's interesting. Tara, your story includes what was on your mind. I mean, a pretty pivotal moment in a relationship that obviously was very important. My situation dealt with what was on my mind, a very pivotal moment. My buddy with the baby monitor, very pivotal moment. And for a little kid, what's a more pivotal moment than Christmas Eve? One of the first Christmases you're old enough to remember. All of that lines up. So now I go back and I'm thinking through these emails, and I've read them over and over again, looking for commonality. But somebody wrote me and said, it's happened to me many times over the years, and I've noticed that it usually happens when I'm overly stressed or dealing with a lot of anxieties, but it's always such a terrible experience. One time I was having a dream. I was lying in my bed and my door's open and my mom comes in to my room to check on me and tell me to wake up. Then all of a sudden I'm outside my dream. I tried to wake up, but I couldn't wake myself up because my body was in sleep mode. When I finally did wake up, I thought my mom was actually standing there, and it took me a few seconds to realize that it had been a dream and she wasn't standing there. It doesn't sound that scary unless you've experienced it. And then, I mean, this poor kid is stressed out and thinking like their mom is a ghost or something like that. This gal, this was the best email I got on it. She gave me tons of detail about her dealing with this for a long time. She describes the out of body thing. She said, the first experience was when I was 9 or 10. I woke up from a nightmare, but it was like I was still dreaming. In the dream, I was in a rage. I thrashed and kicked my sheets, but I wasn't actually thrashing or kicking. Panicking, real me got up and staggered down the hall to my parents' room. I tore the hall bookcase from the wall, sending the books sprawling. Real me continued walking and sobbing in terror, bookcase untouched. Once in my parents' bedroom, I tried to rip a footpost from the bed frame. Real me raced up to my mom's bedside, tried to explain what was happening, and begged her to pray for me. She got up and screamed at me. My mother got up and screamed at me. Real mom spoke softly, asking questions, and eventually did pray. So there are two moms. After that, the dream stopped. I was fully lucid, and after much crying, I was able to calm down. I slept the rest of the night with my mom. I was too scared to be alone. That's a 10-year-old girl.
Wow.
Dealing with that. Here's the punchline of the email. Though we didn't know it at the time, I was getting extremely sick with toxin overload from black mold. It's data that goes on the graph.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of saying it. It's data that goes on the graph. I had this thing happen at work one time where we were doing this test over and over, and I started seeing things in the data that nobody else could see. But it didn't necessarily line up on the graph, if that makes any sense. But I got a sense of it over time, and it started to be a gut feel sort of thing. And turns out when we went out and we asked everybody else across the agency that I worked for if they were seeing something similar, and we started comparing all the stories, sure enough, when we graphed it, it was real. but nobody was talking about it. My point is, this might be one of those things. A lot of people maybe experience this, but nobody talks about it because of whatever reason.
Guarantee it. All right, this is from Jonathan. Jonathan goes by Jonathan among the patrons. He said, I've had sleep paralysis twice. The first time didn't have the feeling of dread, but I could observe, sense people moving around. I was sleeping in a room full of bunk beds. Strangely, I recall coming out of a dream into my sleep paralysis dream. Basically, I went through Inception. I had an overwhelming need to urinate, and after finally waking up, I went to urinate. The second time, I was in my bed at home. Someone was calling for me from outside, and I thought it was my dad, as he frequently does that. Tried to respond, couldn't. Eventually, and this is where it gets juicy, a dark figure entered my room. Once again, I presumed it to be him, my dad. But the figure just watched me, almost expectantly, but I was unable to respond to its demand. Eventually, broke out of the dream and went back to sleep.
That it is unreal to me how many people have the exact same feeling. It's always a dark figure. Like, read another one.
Pato said, I was sleeping alone in my basement about 3 or 4 years ago. I woke up in the middle of the night to a dark female figure standing at my feet. I have no idea what caused me to perceive the thing as female because there were no defining features. That sounds like my story. Other than I perceived it to be male. It stood silently there as I lay completely paralyzed. In hindsight, I know it was a dream, but at the time I perceived it to be 100% real. However, this was not like a dream where it feels real and then you wake up and you know it was a dream. This felt completely real, like I was in the flesh and had complete feeling and perception of my surroundings, unlike a dream where details are left out. I felt sheer terror like I've never felt before since I saw this unknown figure but could not move no matter how hard I tried.
That's unreal, man. It is crazy.
Honestly, and I don't know if Tara feels the same way, but if I just was doing a solo podcast, I wouldn't talk about this on it. Having you here to vouch for me makes this something that's easier to talk about publicly. Because it sounds ridiculous, and I realize that talking about this could reframe the way people think about me or how I view the world in an instant, because it sounds so weird. Something like that happens, you want an explanation.
I was really glad she said that this morning. We were actually getting ready this morning, and she goes, oh, yeah, that happened to me. And I was like, what?
Thank you for just laying it out there, Tara.
You know what I always use as a litmus test for this sort of thing is, what does the person have to gain from telling me this story?
Smart. You sound like a little finger right now.
Says something to me and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to think more about him if he has this story, or, oh, yeah, he's throwing in on top of the rest of these people's stories, then the credibility goes down.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the reason why I believe in God has to do with, the first people that hung out with Jesus and what happened to them when they told people what happened. They got killed.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's two reasons you lie: the anticipation of pleasure or the avoidance of pain. And for someone to tell a story that, will cause pain, that increases the likelihood that it's credible.
And of course, the third option is those people who, in your example, followed Jesus from the beginning, thought they saw what they saw, had some sort of mass hallucination along with a bunch of other skeptical witnesses, and they were just misguided. I suppose that's possible, and I suppose the same would be possible here. You thought you saw this, maybe you actually saw this. You thought you experienced this, maybe you actually experienced that. And it's one of those, for me, the closer I look at their lives and the data, the harder it is for me to believe that they were just confused. I think they knew what they'd seen, and they made rational decisions based on that led to all of them but one getting killed for what they believed.
Okay, Matt, it's late here. I'm going to let my wife go to bed.
What a wonderful surprise. You told me you were going to drop something on me and that it was going to melt my brain, and you succeeded.
So thanks for letting me join you guys, I guess.
It It was a treat. I love where you took it, Tara. Thank you.
Yes.
Sweet dreams.
I'm going to let you guys finish your podcast.
Sounded like the Grabbler.
I'm going to wait till you're asleep and sneak in your room and say hello.
I do admit that I now fear going to sleep after having this conversation, but that's okay.
Leave the lights on. Yeah.
Yep, with the lights on. So
I'm totally going to breathe heavy. I'm going to be going down the hall with plastic bags rustling.
Stop. Okay,
You're
night.
never invited to my house again. Good night, Tara. Thank you.
Good night, Matt. Here's Destin.
Golly, man. That was fun.
If you think about it, Tara's description was like a demonic force or something like that. But what about the strategy? Like, if you were a force of darkness, would this be something that you did?
That's where I get hung up, man. I understand why people have this experience. I mean, I really understand why people have this experience and think Satan, demons, dark spirits, whatever dark spirit fits in your categories of thought for evil. I get it. But at the same time, like what's the end game if you're a spirit of darkness and you're like, well, I tell you what I'm going to do tonight,
I'm just gonna
Captain
scare
Darkness
the crap
Spirit.
out of Matt Whitman so he goes and
I'm just
going to
go like creep around in some house and then never appear again. And he'll be really scared and it'll change his life because now he'll look down hallways differently. And like, it's a terrible plan.
Yeah.
I feel like if you wanted to mess with me, the better trick would be not to scare me because then I'm more scared of things that seem dark and evil. I think the better trick would be to lie, to look truthful and communicate things that seem good and right to deceive me. Like if I were a spiritual being trying to screw with people, that's how I'd do it.
Or let's say you're an omnipotent being, right? And you have the ability to give whatever sight to people. What if that kind of stuff's happening all the time and then it's the force of good that just allows you to see the evil that's always happening and they just allow you to see it for that one moment? What if it's like that?
In Tara's example, if you flip it around and you view that as a hypothetical moment where something good gave her the ability to see something bad to prompt her in a direction, to see what was going on behind the scenes, if you accept that narrative, that really does read a lot differently than poorly strategizing demons got together and did something stupid that doesn't make any sense and wouldn't advance their cause.
Right. Completely accepting the fact that this could all be just this one little thing that your brain does between sleep and consciousness. Accept that.
Yep.
But it's just fun to game out how forces of evil and forces of good could work, almost like a battle drill. Isn't that fun to think about?
Yeah, it is. Let's run it a different way. Let's run it for people who absolutely reject the spiritual, but embrace the idea that there might be life with motivations beyond our own borders, our own world.
Like aliens.
What if you're an alien? Yeah. Game it out. Would it be to your advantage as an alien to freak someone out in their room? What would be the goal in that?
Well, I don't think there would be. I don't know. Think about what happens when you catch a fish, right? Pull that fish out. I mean, you're not necessarily trying to freak the fish out, but it just happens. Have you ever interacted with something other than a human in a way that was like, oh, I'm not going to run away from you right now. I'm just going to sit and just let this happen.
Yeah, only if it's domesticated.
Right.
Yeah, everything else bounces. Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I've never really thought it through. If I was the alien, I imagine if I was an alien and I went to another planet, my first move would be to get out the probe. I would just want to know what's in the butt.
I don't. Oh, man. Whitman. Matt Whitman. Thank you for that deep insight, Pastor.
Well, that's always what the stories are. And I just think that's also stupid. Like, why would aliens fly all the way from wherever they're coming from to size up your colon?
Maybe it's like
that's not
in
where
Avatar.
the data is.
In Avatar, people like had USB hair mailed biological interfaces. Maybe that's where their interfaces would be.
That made more sense to me. I like that better. Yeah,
The hair melding?
I don't
Yeah.
know. It just comes back to this. I think some fear is rational, some fear is irrational, and the fear that's the worst is the mix of the two.
So you're saying the problem in general for our fear is when we don't have situational awareness. And that's the same in any kind of politics or any kind of business deal you're doing. If you don't have complete situational awareness, then we don't feel like we're in control, and it's the fear of the unknown. So that's why this is so freaky, and that's why you are now scared to walk down that hallway where you're at right now and go flip that light switch off.
Nah, I'm fine.
Are you scared of the dark now?
No, I'm not scared of the dark.
I said now. I said right now. Are you scared of the
Like
dark?
right this second?
Yeah, right this second.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I peek out the window from time to time just to see who might be out there. Maybe it's going to be a hilarious prank. But the difference now is that, okay, I'm definitely awake. And right now, hear that? That's my hands. I can move them, and I'm definitely talking. So I feel like I have some degree of control. And I've got a 3-foot basket hilt Scottish claymore mounted on the wall behind me. So I'll probably just carry that out with me in case I need to stab a demon or an alien or something.
Yeah.
It's really sharp. It's not that sharp, but that'll make it hurt more. So that helps. That helps. But no, I think the other thing about it though, that we just have to acknowledge is that being unable to move as an element of this is really what takes it to the next level. That's what took it to the next level for me. If I could have got up and moved around, it still would have been absolutely horrifying. But the ability to interact with my environment would have helped me snap out of it. I would have snapped out of it immediately, I think. But the fact that something that's never happened before, loss of motor control of my body, coincided with seeing an 8.5-foot slender man curling his fingers around the frame of my door, and I can't move at that moment, of all moments, the moment when I most need to move, that is what sent it from horrifying to the most scared I've ever been or could imagine being.
And that is what's most weird about this, because I can see one of those things happening to the brain, but the fact that the brain is in some weird vapor-locked condition for motor control, but at the same time is generating an image or a apparition or whatever this is, that's what makes it weird and hard to believe. And the fact that it happens across cultures. Yeah, one of the comments that one of the patrons left went through every cultural reference to this, and the Japanese have a word for it. Kanashibari? Am I saying that right? Kanashibari?
That sounded pretty good to me.
I don't know.
Better than I would have done.
The translation is to be bound up with metal. And there's a drawing on this website explaining what it is. It is unreal. Anyway, that was a super enlightening post that patron made about all the cultural references. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Anyway, where you at on all this? We should probably wrap it up.
I'm where I've been at the end of each segment we've done on this. I cannot put a bow on this conversation and say I've solved it and it's like this. I can go to my Bible and think theologically about it, and I can't solve it. There's just not enough data there for me to say definitively it's this, or this. This is what God is doing. This is what dark spirits are doing. I don't know. I can't say there's not something from some other place whose science I don't understand that's showing up and messing with people. I can't say for sure it was all in my head because it didn't feel like it was all in my head. So I don't know. And weirdly, I really like that I don't know.
Really?
I like that there's still some mystery to it. I see the science behind it. I get it, but I also experienced it.
Yeah.
And I like that it is something that's probably just going to have to sit in limbo for me.
Yeah. And what I think is most interesting about it is, I too am a Christian and I tend towards a spiritual explanation, but I love the fact that the Japanese have a word for it. Kanashibari. In Hong Kong, they call it the ghost oppression. In Newfoundland, it's called the old hag. People just everywhere, they experience this. And it's just a matter of whether you're one of these people in the small percentage that's had it or not. Anyway, I would love to know if we could actually take a poll, the percentage of people that have experienced this. Because you and Tara, you clearly had some kind of bond that I didn't have. And it's like I was on the outside looking in, and people that have had this experience, it's apparently it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a bond I'd love to have with no one, but there are some things you don't forget, and that is never going away.
Man, it's crazy.
Let's talk about something else.
Do you know what would be fantastic?
I have a feeling I'm not going to like it.
If someone were to recreate like a, like on Unsolved Mysteries back in the day, they would do a dramatization of the event that happened. If somebody were to do this,
yes,
of you clearing the rooms in your underwear.
Yeah, but picture that happening. Who would need to play that? I mean, obviously Chris Pratt. No one else could get that right.
Well, or what's his name? Come on,
Danny
007
DeVito?
guy. No.
Oh.
What's his name? Jason Statham?
Jason Statham, my doppelganger. I get that one a lot.
He can do that.
Daniel Craig. Yeah, seriously, if we could get Jason Statham on board to do the 2-minute poorly shot reenactment for the documentary of me yelling at things in my underwear, let me tell you this, it would be popular with the ladies.